No matter how many zvachim or individual, the Pashup shot of the Mishnah, which the Gemara is going to have to correct, is no matter if a zevach got mixed in to chatois and mesos. So Rashi tells us, Hashta mashma achas kshera, any zevach, any individual zevach that got mixed into a multitude of chatois and mesos, even if it's in 10,000 of chatois and mesos. So first we need to know what are chatois and mesos. Chatois, there are 5 types of carbon chatoses that are in a condition where they have to be left to die. They're not killed, they're left to die. And those are represented, oddly enough, by the name of the woman who was the Pilegesh of Esav. It says, Vesimna Hoisa Pilegesh Esav. Vesimna has 5 letters in it, and that word represents, the Rosh Tevis represent the 5 chatois hamesos. So Vov stands for Vlat chatos. A chatos is normally a female animal, so it could be pregnant. And what if it gives birth? That baby is not a chatos; it's a Vlat chatos. We leave it to die. Sof stands for Temuras chatos. If someone makes a Temura from his chatos, so now Vayahu Smurase Kodesh, now he has a second chatos. Again, that's left to die. The Nun stands for. We're going to get there. Oh, I said, well, the Vav is Vlat Chatos, Sof is Temuras Chatos. Mem is Mesu Bailah. Rashi doesn't go in order of the name. I'm not sure what Rashi's order is, but Rashi didn't go in order of the name. Because of my memory, it's much easier for me to go in order of the name. So Sof is Temuras Chatos, Mem is Mesu Bailah. Someone had to bring a Chatos, he set it aside, and he died. Nun stands for a niskapu baila. For instance, the animal got lost, and he brought another korban chatos, and then they found the original one. And the ayin stands for avar shnosa, meaning the animal, if it's more than a year old, can no longer be brought as a chatos. So what if for some reason there was a delay in bringing the chatos, and now it's a year old, so you can't bring it? So any one of these are possible. So what if you had a whole bunch of these korbanos that have to be left to die, and the regular carbon got mixed into it? The halacha is oy b'shara niskal, or if they got mixed in with a shara niskal. The halacha is afilu achas periboy, even if one got mixed into 10,000, yamusu kulon, they should all die. Now that's not a chiddush, right? It would be a big chiddush if it said afilu riboy of zvachim ksherim, ba'achas of a shara niskal, or ba'achas of a chatois hamesos. And the Gemara is going to eventually be magia the Mishnah a little bit, or explain the Mishnah that it means that. Okay, that's item number 1. That's item number 1. This arvu, 1 second. Tosfos over here makes a very interesting zustel from where they build a halacha l'maaseh situation. And Tosfos asks a question. So here we're saying that even if there's one puzzle and there's many ksherim, the puzzle will not be bottled, and therefore yomusu kula. So Tosfos asks from an interesting case in Sanhedrin. Roitzeach, the Pashup shot, we're going to learn it's a human Roitzeach. Shenis Arav Ba'acherim, who got mixed in with other people. Petur, Kulan Peturin, everybody walks free. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Koinsin Oison Lakipa. You gather them all into a room and you don't feed them and they die. On the Farish B'Gemara, we're not speaking about a human. Rather, B'Shor, Shaloi Nigmar Dinoi, if you had a shor that had to be killed, it was a shar niskal, it was a roif of nirva, whatever it was, but there was no gmar din yet done on the shore. Shenis arev b'shvarim acherim shenigmar din. So you have a whole bunch of shvarim that are destined to be killed by Besni. You have one shore that didn't have mother within. and they got mixed together. Now you have to understand. So be goymer the din now, and then they're all condemned to death. Zok Rashi, Zok Tosfos, Patri Rabbanon. The Rabbanon said all of these shvarim do not get killed. Mishum the ein goymerim dinoi shel shor el b'fanav. We give the same courtesy to a shor that we would give to a human. The Gemara din has to be with the identifiable baldin there. And since they'll never be able to do this, because this shor got mixed in with other shvarim, because of that, we let them all walk. Perek Tosfos, B'hashtar Hacha, the Ruba de Atera, here in our Mishnah, where the Roiv of Heter, you could have 10,000 kosher karbonis, they got mixed in with one shor in this skull. And by killing them all, you're going to be mafsed kachim in a very big way. Oops, said to the kachim. Nevertheless, amrinon yamusu kulam. We say everyone gets killed. So hasam, the ruba d'isura. There you could have 100 animals that were condemned to death. The one animal is no tzaddik. It just wasn't nigmar adin. Hasam, the ruba d'isura of a hedjit. And there's no problem of have said this kachim, like kosherin. Surely it should be bottled. So surely forget you should kill them all, just like you say over here. That's Tosfos kasha. Benira l'Rabbeinu Yitzchak the garsinon k'moisha matzah b'sefer echad yoshan. He changes the girsa. Rabbeinu Yitzchak want to change the girsa in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, like he found in an Alta Sefer that it's speaking b'shor shaloi nigmar dinoi shenis arev b'shvarim acherim that v'loi garsinon shenigmar dinon ele b'shvarim al yaskin. So you have one shor that was loy nigmar dinon that got mixed in to regular fine animals, and that's why it's not shver that we say that they're all potter, so it will be bottled. But in the case of kachim, we'll say that the kachim will not be bottled. And Rabbeinu Tam didn't like what Rabbi Yitzchak said. The Heishav lo Rabbeinu Tam, the Masnisim de Katoni. The reason why I want to learn this Tosfos is because it's fascinating how from remote halachas the Rishonim extract halacha l'maisa. So the Heishav lo Rabbeinu Tam, the Masnisim de Katoni, Kulon Peturin, the Mishnah that says Kulon Peturin by the Ritzach, it's not mashma that these are regular innocent animals. Kulum Tur means that they had a death sentence, but because of this taruvas, they got out on the technicality. Mashma sho'acherim b'nei chiyuva. It's mashma that the other ones aren't potter, rather they are b'nei chiyuva. So therefore, he disagrees with Rabbi Yitzchak's understanding of the Mishnah that all of these shvarim were muter. And then Tosfos says, because of that, why don't you do a simple eitzah? The oid, the Rish Lakish ad Rabbi Vokai, I didn't learn the Gemara there, but the Mashani, hacha b'roitzeach shaloi nigmar dinoi, shenis arev b'roitzchem acher. Rish Lakish learns that it was actually speaking about a human. It was a human who was lo nigmar dinoi, that got mixed in with other roitzchem that were nigmar dinoi. And the answer is if we're talking about humans, there everybody would agree everyone's potter. You're not going to kill one person because of everybody else. You're definitely not going to do that. So even though everybody else is chayiv misa, if there's one person who wasn't nigmar dinan, he's going to save everybody. The only time we'll consider killing others is only if we're talking about shvarim. We're not going to extend that courtesy to humans. Mashma de bahu adina and yana to ukma Rabbi Vo ba'adam. It's mashma that under the same circumstances, where Rabbi Vo explained that our Mishnah was actually speaking about humans under those same parallel conditions, muki lo rish lakish b'shar shenik mardinoi, and it was mixed in with other roitzchem. Avol nisarev b'shvarim ma'alya, but if one sure that was chayiv misa, got mixed in with kosher, fine, normal animals, Shlokish would have said that the way you get around, so you have over here a mixture. One animal that's also is mixed into many animals that are mutter. So the question that we need to do now is, could we be matter that? Because a behema is an individual, it's not bottle. Behema, a full behema wouldn't be bottle b'roiv. So what would be the eitzah to rescue these animals? So what you would do is, and this is the big yesod, nichbeshinu, put them all into one pen, make them into a big toiroivis. Now, in that condition that they are, there's nothing you can do. Nothing's bottle of behemoths over choshev. But the Naidon, they'll move around on their own. And it's inevitable that one animal is not going to get out here and there. And every animal that leaves the pen, now you have the concept of chol de parish, meruba parish. So we know that Allah is kol kavua kamerza mechza. If you went into a plaza and there were 9 stores of kosher meat and 1 store of treifin meat, and you went to the plaza, you went shopping, you went into one of the stores, and you bought a piece of meat, and you forgot which store you went into, that's called kavua. And kol kavua kamerza mechza. Since you went into the establishment and you don't know which kavuadik establishment you went into, it's 50-50, you don't go to survive. But if you found a piece of meat in the parking lot on the floor, then you can assume, where did it separate from? Where did it originate from? It originated from a meat store that was kosher, because 9 out of 10 in this plaza are kosher. So we can orchestrate and engineer this to happen, even though it's not a parish. We have all these animals together, and one will not be bottled in the other. But if we can orchestrate and cause that one should be a parish, then we could tap in to the heter of kol de parish, meruba parish. And the question is this a valid heter? So let's continue to the second wide line of Tosfos. Umitam zeh. So I just find it so fascinating how, because of a discussion in what pshat in our 2 sugis are that have nothing to do with Isra v'heter, we're boing guys a chiddush related to bittul baroi. Now, in our days, I don't think this is so relevant, but in those days where people kept animals in pens and they had wolves that to deal with, it was a very realistic issue. When we tam the nearly lahater derusas hazev baroi. What if he knows that a wolf attacked one of his animals? Now, when a wolf attacks an animal, it puts its nails into the animal, and it causes the animal to become a treifel because of the poison that it puts in. It's halachically a treifel. The problem is it still looks like a regular animal, and it's mixed into your hundreds of other animals. How are you going to know which one it was? Are you going to now ask for the whole pen? Rabbeinu Tam said, no, I have a way to be makel. The meisin b'chol yoim, I guess in the 1400s, it was a common occurrence. This is even in the 1200s. There's a avim tarfim, v'noisim seminator. A wolf will attack and will seize one sheep from a big stada, from a big flock, v'royim atzilam, and the shepherd's going to run after them and save them. Oh, this is mamish already in Yonah D'Yoimo, because we're learning by Yitzchak being a shepherd, so you can call this the Labuda strikes again. V'sharinan lo, and Rabbeinu Tam held it's mutter. V'yavagav the balachayim chashivi, even though balachayim are chashivi, and they would not be bottled b'roiv. It's because of this svara that as each one leaves the pen, you can say it's kol de parish. V'chein roiv oifois dorsin avozim v'tarna goyim. The same thing is if you have a chicken coop, you can assume that one of your birds might have once upon a time been attacked, and nevertheless mutar. V'hacha in this Arab beruva shenigmar dinan, and in our case where it was this Arab beruv shenigmar dinan de patrinu hacha, referring to Sanhedrin, the patrinu that we patted them all afilu naidi v'loy amrinan called the parish miriba parish. We don't say miriba parish. And if it's called the parish, muriba parish, we have to assume that every animal we find is condemned to death. Don't say that. Zoktoisus you really do. Lav Peturin, the listery b'hanakam. We're not going to be matter than b'hana. as if they were kosher regular animals. Ela Peturin, the loy atrichu beidina lahargum. The chamisas bailim kachamisas ashar. All it means is Bezdin won't kill the animal, but the animal will still, as far as Isra v'Heter, have a din of a shar niskal, and therefore it will remain also. Another reason why they won't kill the animal is because in the same scenario, if there was a human involved, even though he's batal b'roiv, and there's many more people that are guilty that are supposed to be killed, but you would definitely not kill a person because of it. So I don't want to go through the whole Toshis, but I just wanted to introduce how from Steers in Sanhedrin to Zvachim, we build that halacha l'maisa the case. Again, it's not so halacha l'maisa for us nowadays, but in the olden days when people lived like this, it was a very big concern. Okay, so that was the first case. In the first case, it's a musuku. What about nisarvu bishar shenev boyaver? You have one carbon who got mixed in to a shor shenev boyaver, or nisarvu many carbonos zvachim ksherim got mixed in bishar shenev boyaver. Echad beechad. So Rashi says this is even one in one. Umefarish v'ozol mahi, and the Rebbe is going to say what does it mean shenev boyaver? So Zok the Mishnah weiter, and they take out the word oi, because we're just now elaborating on what type of shor this carbon got mixed in with. Very long daf over here. For instance, shahemis as adam. Now the question, al pi echad, oi al pi abayim. So the first question is, if a shor killed somebody, would it not get killed? The teretz is that it was al pi echad, al pi abayim. This in and of itself is also an important sugya. I don't even know if my microphone works. Let me just quickly do an audio test. Sorry, I'm not testing. Okay, we'll stop this. So let's see what Rashi says. So Shahemis Adam al pi echad oy al pi abayim. The shor Shahemis al pi abayim. If a shor killed somebody, so we know if two Edom come and say Reuben shor killed somebody, that shor becomes a shor niskal, gets killed, right? What if the Bailam come to bed and say, my shor killed somebody? So the halach is, if they're lay miskila, the shor is part of miskila. You know why? The moida beknas potter. Because the moida beknas is potter. This is a bombadik chiddush. What do you mean moida beknas is potter? Since when is it a knas to kill an animal that killed somebody? That's not a knas. Where do you find such a knas? That moida beknas should be potter. And in fact, Toshvis actually asks about it. Toshvis says, Pirush B'Kudrus, the potter le'miskila, mishum demoid b'knas potter. And Rashi was mafarish this way in Makkas as well. V'nirzak Toshvis, dafilu amri, shenigmar dinam bevezdin ploini, eina ragna piem. When do you say moed b'knas potter? Moed b'knas potter means, I ran into Bezdin, I stole, therefore I shouldn't be chayav kef. But what if I was already chap with Edom, and Bezdin condemned me and said I'm chayiv kef, and then I go to another Bezdin and I'm moida that the first Bezdin already condemned me and were mechayiv me with kefa. You don't say moida b'knas potter there because it's not a knas anymore. But in this case, the halacha is even if I came to Bezdin as the owner of the animal and I said that in the other Bezdin Edom came and already condemned my animal, that's also potter. So Zok tells us that cannot possibly be because of moida b'knas potter. V'yafagav d'chiyagavna mechayev b'knas kidamuchach beperek kama demakos. So Tosfos does not like Rashi's pshat that it's al moida b'knas potter. So therefore Tosfos says v'nearly time adayim nerag al pia bailim imein ed echad imoy k'deisa beperek kol asurin zev zamuter b'achila minalam. So he says the reason is nearly time of the Einenerg al pi abayla. He's not neman al pi. He's not the animal is not killed al pi baylam. Kedeiser perkal isurin zev zeh is muter b'achila minalam. Yisal gedaytach ledi rasir lam limutinu l'rev v'nirva l'gvoya. I'm not sure what he's saying over here. What the shot that the Mefarshim say that Tosfos is saying is that an animal is never killed al pi bailim. Because Adam correlates to mamoinoi, an animal could never be condemned because of the testimony of its owner. And there are those who are goyrus in Rashi, and the Rishkarav learns in Rashi, although he doesn't change the girsa, he learns that if the miskila to have a ki moide beknas potter, but it's not actually moide beknas potter. Okay, so therefore the animal is alive, but even though it's alive, it cannot be used. It cannot be used as a carbon. You can't say that you should kill them all, like like we said in the first case. All of these animals, there's no din mis on them. They're all mutter lahajit. If it wasn't for the fact that they got mixed in with the carbon, they're regular chulin animals. They could be used. So Zokt Rashi v'efshel limkors kulam letzorchei min oisoi zevach. Maybe just sell them all to somebody who's going to use them. Let's say it was a carbon oila that they got mixed in with. So sell them all to be used as an oila. You can't. Sharei psum lakrova. All these animals you're not allowed to put on them as bad. So you don't have really a solution with them. Okay. So I'll call upon him. So you have these animals that are also to be brought on them as beach, and a kosher carbon got mixed into them. The muktzah is an animal that was designated to be avodah zarah. The nevad, it was actually served as an avodah zarah. Again, we learn from Sukkim that it's a teyeva to be brought as a carbon, but the animal does not become osher. No, the estan mechir, and estan means it was given to a woman as zoynas payment. Mechir means it was swapped for a dog. All of these animals cannot be brought as karbonis, but they're mutter bano. Turning on Thomas Bays, b'klayim, if one of them is klayim, ubetreifa or with treifa, ubiyotzedoifen. So what do? So you have one kosher carbon that's mixed in, let's say, with a treifa. One yotzedoifen mixed in with a klayim, some other animal that is mutter bahano, but you're not allowed to bring it for a carbon. So you know what you do? Yiru ache yistapu. You let them both graze in the meadow until they both get moment. So therefore, now both of these animals, the one that's chulun, you could always redeem. There's no redemption required. Now the animal that was the carbon, being that it has a mum, you could redeem it as well. And those who take out the word v'yimachu, it just means you could be paid it, you could be machalit, v'yavi. So now what happens is you have two animals. Let's say one animal was worth $200 and the other animal was worth $150. So what you're going to do is you're going to be paid to both animals because you don't know which is the carbon, and someone's going to give $350 and he's going to get both animals. Both animals are now chulin, and now we have $350. Now we don't know, is the $200 the one that was paid to the carbon, or was it the $150 that was paid to the carbon? In other words, which animal was the carbon? If one of them was worth more, was it the more expensive animal or the less expensive animal? Obviously, we have to be choshed that it was the more expensive animal, and therefore v'yavi b'dmei hayafa shabahen me'ayseyamin. So let's say it was a carbon oila, and the one animal was 150 and one was 100. So he put it in 250. Both animals are chulin. Now with $150, he has to buy now a new carbon oila. Toshis asks the question: if it's a treifa, how come you can't tell? What do you mean not mixed with a treifa? So you could see memela nevad, you can't tell, but how a treifa you should be able to tell. The fact Toshis. Oh, so that's what Toshis talks about. With treifa, the Gemara Daik, the Gemara is going to ask a kasha. Hi treifa hechedomi. Iyodala, if it's something it's visible, leizol v'lishkala, just get rid of it, and then there's no mixture here. When Mefarish Rabbi Yirmiyah to mention this arva b'v'la treifa, it wasn't this arva the treifa, it was this arva the v'la treifa. So it looks perfect, it's pristine, but it has the psul treifa. Rabbi Eliezer, he's going to Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that the v'la of a treifa also is treifa. Rabbi Yadai Mefarish, Rabbi Yadai is Mefarish, Kagoyin the is arva nukubas hakoitz b'drusas hazeh. There might be a hole. There might be a hole in the skin of the animal, but we don't know. Is the hole because the animal got punctured with a thorn, which is harmless, or did the animal get punctured because a zev sunk its nails into the animal, and that would be a treifa, and that's not discernible. For shlokish mefarish, going the Arab bin Afula. Not sure. That means the hikshar of Ephraim. Even the law yediyah. So now, fragment of Ephraim. Okay, let's say we're talking about an undiscernible trephus. Right? We're always speaking about an undiscernible trephus. So fragment bin Ephraim. So what's the solution? Even the law yediyah ma mo'elas kan riyah. What does it help riyah? What is it going to help? The lamachla efshar. You can't eat once you're pointed them because they had a mum. You can't eat either of them because they're both a safek treifa. Mishum safek treifa, right? So even if you pointed them, you can't eat either one because either one of them might be a treifa. Now you might think I can give it to a goy or to a dog. You know why? They ain't pointing as a kachim lachilin klavim. If you have a carbon that was a bal mum, and because that you were pointed, you're only allowed to eat that meat. You're not allowed to do anything else with it other than eat the meat. You're not allowed to serve it to dogs, goyim. You're not allowed to milk the animal. You're not allowed to make the animal work. You're only allowed to shecht it and eat it. So what did we accomplish by this entire process of riyad and poida? You still can't do anything. So Zog Toysvis Miulamand Amrti Arab Bedrusa. If the treifa is that it was a drusa, so then yeshla b'dika lacheshchita. You're right. While it's alive, you just see a hole in the skin. You don't know if it's a koitz or if it's a nail of a zayv. But once you cut the animal open, then you could see. Im hedem abosar keneged b'nei ma'ayim or keneged asimanim. If the basar is red, it looks like there's inflammation there. That's a simon. It was a drusa. If we levad the drusa yeshla b'dika. There's also a bedika. So therefore, you might not know while it's alive, but you shech them, and you could determine at that point which one was the treifa and which one wasn't. But now Toshis has a murder. We know that the halach is you're not allowed to be paid a kachim that had a mum and then feed it to your dog, right? Zok is a massive chiddush. Maybe because sover Poidim is a kachim lachilin l'klavim ki ika da amri the Perek sheni the b'chayos. Either you could say that our sugya holds not like what we always assumed as halacha l'maisa, and that is you cannot serve sulei mekdoshim dogs. Maybe you could, but Inami has a very innovative thought. Kidam rinon ein poidim is a kachim lachilin l'klavim. You know when the Torah says that if you're paid to psula mekdoshim, you can't serve it to a dog. The problem is not that you can't be paid. If you're paid to psula mekdoshim and you're allowed to eat the meat, you're also allowed to serve it to your dog. You just can't be paid if you'll only be able to serve it to your dog. Because then kachim shemesu or nitrafu. Kachim shemesu is an avela. If you would be paid, you wouldn't be able to eat it. You would only be able to serve it to your dog. If it became treifa as well. But over these, the karbonos we're talking about, the karbonos themselves didn't become treif. It was the chulin that they were mixed in that became treif. Abul kachim gufayu, the kachim themselves, if you would be able to identify which were the karbonos, the chazul of the day, you would be able to eat it. Therefore, shari la'achila no'etik chavim alaklav. That's an unbelievable chiddush. Here, it's only a technicality why you can't eat the kachim, because you don't know which one it is. But technically, this kachim can be eaten. It's a regular kosher animal. So therefore, you're allowed to feed this to klavim. So what benefit you have by being binded, you can serve it to klavim. That's a big chiddush of Tosfos. Because don't come right there. This arvu b'chulin tamimin. What happens if you have a carbon oil that got mixed in with a perfect chulin animal? So you have two animals mixed together. One is chulin, one is noila, but they're both royu to be brought as karbonis. So you know what you do? Yimachru hachulin l'tzarchei oisoi hamin. You have two animals, you have two sheep. One is chulin, one is an oila, and we don't know which is which. So you find somebody else who's looking to buy an oila, and you say, one of these two animals is a chulin. Pay me $100 for it. You'll have the animal, we can't identify which one it is. But when the coins maktir both animals, will say one's for Reuven, one's for Shimon. Whichever is for Reuven should be for Reuven. Whichever is Shimon should be for Shimon, even though we can't point to the animal to identify which one it is. What about kachim v'kachim? What if I had a carbon oil and you had a carbon oil, and they both got mixed together? Min b'mina, they're both the same carbon. So then all you do is they're both brought, even though each carbon the kohen doesn't know specifically who it belongs to. Nevertheless, it could just be brought l'shem, its owner. How about kachim b'kachim min b'sheinim? What if a shlomim got mixed into an oil? Now, what are you going to do? So there, it's your achi. You have to let them graze until they have a mum, and you're paid to both of them. But we don't know if the more expensive carbon was the oila, or if the more expensive carbon was the shlomim. So therefore, you buy an oila and you buy a shlomim of equal value to the more expensive one, which means when you sell both these animals, you'll get $500. But you need to buy $200-300 carbonas. So you're going to have to put in the extra $100, and it's going to cost you. With you got to put in extra money. What if it was mixed in the Bechor and Meiser, and there's no such thing as Padiyah and Bechor and Meiser? If they get a mum, you eat them. If they don't have a mum, they're carbon. If they do have a mum, you eat them, but you can't be paid them. So what do? You just wait till they all get a mum, and they all get eaten kibechor uchamaiser, and they will all be eaten like a bechor meiser. So basically, you wait till they get a mum. The carbon you have to be paid, the bechor meiser you don't. So therefore, you treat it all like bechor meiser, and you'd have to eat it with the same restrictions that you eat bechor meiser. Hakol yichol l'sarif. Any two carbonas could possibly be mixed together because they're all the same species. Chutz min hachatos v'asham, because the chatos is a nekeva and the asham is a zachar. It's impossible for those two carbonas to get mixed together because it will be quite obvious as to what each carbon is. Zok the heilige Gemara weiter. I don't have the time because I think what time is it? Yeah. Okay. Zok Gemara. My afilu. What do you mean? Even if one kosher carbon got mixed into 10,000 psulim. Zok Gemara. That's not what it means. Hachi Gemara. Even if there were many kosher zvachim, that even one chatois amesos got mixed into them, as Rashi said. Even if one parcel got mixed into 10,000 kosher karbanos, yamusukula. Frag the Gemara, why do I need our Mishnah to teach me this halacha? Tanina chada zimna. We already learned this halacha once before in Maseches Tumur, and it says, "Kol asurin legabe mizbeach." Anything that's also to the mizbeach, oishrin b'cholshein. If they get mixed in with other karbanos, they will aser the karbanos that they're mixed in with a kolshu. Isn't that exactly what our Mishnah says? And Horoi v'Vanirva is one of the examples that the Mishnah over there in Tamura lists off. Zok Gemara, Omar Bashi, Amrisa l'shmaitze kamed Rapsimi. I pointed this concern out to Rapsimi, and he told me about Srichat. He showed me that we need Sai the Mishnah in Tamura and Sai our Mishnah. The Imei Hasam, if you only had the Mishnah in Tamura, Hanamini legavoya. The problem with a Raiva V'Nerva that's not getting killed is mutter, it's chulun, allowed to use it. It's only possible as a carbon. So there it's talking about an animal that's a fine carbon to use. If it's a fine animal to use, you can have a dog from, it just cannot be brought as a carbon. There, it asers b'cholshu. Hanami l'gavoya. Aval hedjit emaloi. But if it's a question of hedjit, meaning it's going to be even also for a hedjit, like hatois and mesos, you would have thought otherwise. So hanami l'gavoya. Kulan hamu rovin. All of the Yisurim in the Maseches Tamura are Asurim legavoya, but are Mutar lahedjit, b'rio v'ftiyah, right? You have the eight of Ri and Ptiyah, but all the animals that would be Mutar lahedjit, like the second set of mixtures in our Mishnah. The first case of our Mishnah is animals that got mixed with Shara Niskol, with other Isurei Hana. But the Mishnah in Tamura is only speaking about non-Isurei Hana, animals that although they're not going to be mutter to be brought as a carbon, they'll asa b'mashu. But lahedjit maybe would be batal b'roif. Aval hani, but in our Mishnah, the lahedjit nami loy chazui leptia, even for a hedjit you can't be used. The lechaz leptia to habi Isurei Hana nisarvu. So you might think, ema niftali Isurei Hana peruba. Let's say you had one Isra and you had one Shor Nisko. They got mixed with many karbanos. Let's say it's bottle b'roiv. Memela lagabe hektish, it's mius to hektish. We will say it's not bottle b'roiv. But in the case where the question is whether a person's allowed to use it, maybe then you go bottle b'roiv. Shaloy musa, maybe they shouldn't all get killed. El yirav yimachru. The leichamer didn't hedge it tulahai. Who said we'll treat hedge it with the same stringency as we'll treat a carbon? Kamash Blam, that's why our Mishnah is required to tell us that even for a hedjit, it's not going to be bottle b'roiv. So I just have our Mishnah, and what you say, for a hedjit it's not bottle. Surely for a carbon it wouldn't be able to be used and it shouldn't be bottle. So why do I need the Mishnah in Tamura? Because imahacha havamina hanihu the Isurei Hananin. These are not bottle because they're Isurei Hana. Aval Hani, but the ones in Tamura, the Lavi Isurei Hana, they're not Isurei Hana. Maloi, Trichi, the Lavi Isurei Hana. I would have thought that you wouldn't need a Mishnah to tell us that. Let's see how Rashi explains this. Aval ve'imei hacha ashmi'inan da'afilu hachim nami mafsedinan. Even if you learn from here, you would know that even kachim mimafsid, v'loy tanahid tamura, and it didn't have the case of tamura. Havamina hani hudim mafsedinan. Dafki in our case will we be mafsid kachim. Don't forget the one animal that was asur b'no made us passel a multitude of kosher karbanis. That's before you passel karbanis, you got to think a couple of times. Why? Mishum the Arab Isurei Hana. You know I will passel so many karbanis because of the one animal that was mixed into it. Because the animal isn't just passel for a carbon. The animal is asur b'no. Aval the tamura, but the psulim in tamura, the lo Arabahu Isurei Hana. Roiv and Nirva, those are not asur b'no. Those are yachid could have an from. They're merely passel for a carbon. The item that got mixed in aren't so bad. Maybe they wouldn't answer all the animals That's why we need both cases. Even cases that are not Isurei Hana, that also is listed in our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah's second case are animals that were not asur b'no. As Rashi the Katani b'Masnisin is our b'shar she'avda. So our Mishnah includes both. Sai animals that will be asur b'no, but the second case in our Mishnah are all animals that will be asur b'no. So the Mishnah Tamura seems to be redundant. And for the Gemara, very important of what we have over there. The Gemara takanta tzrichale. We need the takanta, meaning we need it to tell us what to do with it. So, Perek the Gemara, v'nisni hada tamura, v'nisni hada zvachim. Let it say the one in tamura, and you don't need our Mishnah. Why do we need our Mishnah here? The Mishnah in tamura already tells us that things that are not Isurei Hana are not bottled. So, you're right. Our Mishnah is not here to tell us that it's not bottled. The Mishnah in tamura tells us that. Our Mishnah tells us. So, what do? How do you deal with it? Takanta strictly to hasam oishun b'choshu tani let takanta. There the Mishnah says you got a problem, but how to deal with the problem? V'halcha tani takanta yiru achi yistov. Zok to Gemara the hedjit nami tanalei. Zok Rashi the hedjit nami tana the meseches avodah zara. So we're now leaving meseches tamura, but in meseches avodah zara we also know the chiddush that even if it's asur only for a hedjit, it's not bottle b'roiv. Because in Masechet Avodah Zarah it says, "Isurei Hana loy bati beruba u'mitzri lahedjit." So we know that not only legavoya it's not bottle b'roiv, we know from Avodah Zarah, from Mesechus Avodah Zarah, that even the Hedjit Batal Baroid, V'lama li lemisni hacha v'chatayis hamesus v'shar niskal. Why do we need it over here? Because where did it say in Avodah Zarah that the elu asurin v'arshim b'chol shein yai nesech avodas kachav, and the Gemara trichi. I don't want to go too much. I don't want to encroach into tomorrow's Gemara because we don't have a lot of Gemara to learn tomorrow either. So we have to leave something to learn tomorrow. Because really, this same sugya goes to the Amma Beis. It's also a small item. You know what we'll do? Maybe tomorrow, since I'm a little bit away, instead of learning at 6 o'clock, should we learn at 6:15? Because it's a smaller daf. I won't get patched for a bit of Torah, but so tomorrow, Bez Hashem, we'll learn at 6:15. It will only be online because I'll be away, Misham, from now until next week. I'm not sure what day it is. I think it's going to be next week, Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll be saying Misham every day on Zoom at 6 a.m., except for tomorrow, which will be 6:15. And I'll say again at 8 a.m. because Avram Weisbrod went away. He's going to have to roll, but he told me he'll say Wednesday, the day of the Chasna. The rest I'll say for some people say at 8 and again at 9. So I'll be busy. Shkoyach.